Hello and welcome to Make It Work, the bi-weekly podcast where we uncover inspiring stories of modern working mamas in Asia who have redefined their career paths whilst putting family first.
Hi, I'm Sarah Wong, and today to kick off our special Coach and Counselor series, I will be interviewing the amazing Charlotte Teo. Charlotte is from Singapore and the founder and head coach of What's Up Charlie Coaching and Consultancy that focuses on coaching bold working mamas on the path of good to great. She also describes herself as a pom-pom waver and green highlighter pen, amongst other things. It's a fun one, so let's dive in. Hey, hello, Charlotte. How are you?
Hello, I'm good.
Yeah, good to see you. All right, let's hear about you in 2 minutes or less.
Oh my gosh, okay, you're gonna time me. So, hello everybody, I'm Charlotte. Singaporean based in Singapore, been here my whole life. I am a working mom to 3 kids, age 9, 12, and 42. Okay, the 42-year-old is my husband. So just a little bit of background as to my working career. Global brand marketer turned professional life coach. And I'm a life coach to working moms, and I'm also a brand consultant. And I've had the privilege to work with brands like Nespresso, Aesop, Tupperware. I was doing that for the last 17 years until I experienced a half-time moment in 2022 where I realized that if I were to drop everything, what I would really love to do is to spend the rest of my life's work lifting others up. So I kind of see myself as like a wave that lifts women up, a spark that ignites inspiration, and a lime-colored highlighter, lime-colored,
Wow.
that brings attention to the most important facets of my clients. So that's what I'm doing here now as a life coach. I'm also a foodie and an avid baker. Don't look like one, I've been told, but baking is my jam.
Very cool. I didn't know there was a look to being a baker. I have yet to try any of your baked goods, but I'm excited. If it's anything as good as the coaching session that you gave me, that intro, yeah, I would highly recommend also if anyone's interested to check that out because I did one and it was really interesting. But enough about me. I wanted to ask you a little bit more, Charlotte, about this halftime moment that you experienced. Yeah, can you talk a little bit about what happened during that time?
Sure. So some context, I've been working for 17 years at that point. And business-wise, it wasn't going as I thought it would be. So just in terms of the industry, the market, it wasn't doing so well. And it came to a point where work wasn't as productive as I had hoped it would be. So like the input and the return wasn't, it didn't match, right? So then it started me thinking like, okay, this is affecting me a lot. And it doesn't seem like it should affect me in this way. So I found myself very attached to the work that I was doing, such that it started to affect everything else around me because work wasn't going well. Everything else couldn't stand on its own, if I put it that way. So that gave me a little bit of like, hey, what's going on? I could see myself in third person, when I was kind of like despairing about work and not being able to function in other places. I don't know what we would call that, but for me, I call it like a half-time moment. Some people call it like a midlife awakening of sorts. I don't like to use the word crisis because that's tragic. Yeah. It's just something that happens, right? And I realized that in all of the work transitions that I've had, I had moved from one place to another in a spirit of anxiety. And I knew in that moment that, hey, something doesn't sit quite right. And I think I need to take a pause. I need to take a real half-time moment and just perhaps be with myself and seek counsel and guidance from God. I'm Christian in my religious belief. And take this moment, right, for myself and not move on to the next thing with anxiety. So that was kind of like the context, the realization, and then stumbled into coaching, just taking one first module to discover myself a little bit more, like, what my strengths are, what my values are, and perhaps to receive some encouragement as well as find a community. So that's what kind of like, started me on coaching. After that first module, decided to take the whole thing and, hey,
Wow.
really aligned with this desire to lift others up as part of my life's goal. So yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. When you talked about that halftime moment, I am thinking about when I became a mom the first time. I have 2 kids now. It always feels like something new, even though I've done it before. But it's always a kind of break or an opportunity that makes me question my life status and everything that's happening, my work, like my relationship, who I am, where I'm going. I I feel that I went through kind of that identity crisis. Uh, yeah, do you identify with that? Is that something that also happened to you before?
Absolutely. So I think what really happens to us as individuals, perhaps especially as moms, that shift becomes very real because you do kind of have that gestation period, right? You have 9 months of preparing yourself, but at the same time, that preparation is not really realistic. Like nothing. Honestly, every mom will tell you nothing will prepare you for motherhood because you can read
Yeah.
all the books. I read 11 books on parenting. I'm like crazy, right? Um,
Wow.
Nothing would ever prepare you, and it's because it is constantly changing. But perhaps as individuals who have been educated to a significantly high level, right? The change is something that we grapple with because we perhaps thought that we had things under control. Once we
Mm,
graduate school, we get a job, we get our income, find a partner, get married, and then it's kind of like a natural progression, right? And in your mind, that in many people's minds, that is a natural progression. It becomes a I didn't expect this. And when things are unexpected, that's when you start to, okay, so what am I doing? Who am I? How
mm,
am I supposed to be? Right? I'm sure many of us would have had expectations of how we would want to be as a mom, as a wife, or as a contributor at work. You decide, you have expectations on what these are, right? But I feel like the motherhood one just throws the biggest
yeah.
curve, Suddenly you don't have control. Yeah,
Yes, I think that that really nails it. That the sense of control is no more there. You don't feel like you're supposed to still be in the driver's seat, but it doesn't feel that way because you just don't know what to expect, and it's learning as you go.
absolutely. Every single day, one moment the child is sleeping, one moment they're not sleeping as they should be.
Right. Yeah. And so I'm curious, Charlotte, why, did you decide to focus on working moms as your clientele as you explored your coaching practice and where you wanted to land? How did that come about?
I think there is an unspoken bond between working moms, between mothers. Let's not talk about working moms. Let's just between mothers. We understand what it's like to be in the throes of motherhood. Um,
Mm,
Working moms have actually all moms are working, right? But when I speak of working moms, it's the specific challenge of having a corporate role or contributing in that particular way to society,
mm,
and also having the responsibility of raising children. I realized that I was really
mm,
fortunate enough to have had friends who reached out when I had a child, whilst I
mm,
was on maternity or whilst I was working. And
mm,
I don't think everyone has that because not everyone would have friends who go through the same life stage as you, right? So I feel like I have an opportunity to partner with working moms to offer them that kind of safe space and brave space to just be who you are, who you want to be. Not many
mm,
people have that opportunity to do so. Um, yeah, that's kind of where it came from. Recognizing not everybody has natural support networks.
mm.
Yeah.
Right. And so you felt that you had benefited a lot from other moms reaching out to you when you were still, when you're entering that phase and thinking of giving back right now.
Yeah, I do not know what I would have done without them.
Can you talk a little bit about the challenges you faced back then?
Again, in some context, the nature that I have is one that is quite, wanting to be in control,
Mm,
aiming for perfection or at least near perfection, right? So when I went into motherhood, I had all these ideals of, child must be sleeping through the night by XXX week or
mm,
XXX month, right? Child must be doing this. So there's all these like programs in my mind that should be set in place. I do remember I had my first child. I did not leave the house except for doctor's appointments for 2 whole months. And I did not realize that that was something that was unusual or something that wasn't healthy, honestly, for my mental well-being. And if not for friends reaching out to say, hey, what's up? They also just had children, thankfully, right? They just had children and they were like, oh, let's go out. And I'm like, go out? No, not at all. Absolutely not. Because there was so much fear of being seen as, oh, a mom that's not perfect, doesn't know how to control their child, blah, blah, blah. All these like worries that were not founded eventually, right? Yeah. So that was how like I felt really supported during that time. Able to connect with people going through the same experience and perhaps being able to be given a different perspective, like, oh, she doesn't take the way that I do. Perhaps there's something here that I can glean or learn a little bit from. Yeah, they really helped me come out of my shell. So I'm really thankful for that.
So great. And now I know that you describe yourself in LinkedIn as a pom-pom waver, as a cheerleader. So is that kind of how you see yourself right now as well towards other working moms in this new role as coach?
Absolutely, absolutely. There's a difference when sports teams perform with a cheering crowd and without. In American sports, very often you have cheerleading squads and they make a difference. Whether you're playing at home or playing away, having a crowd cheer you is so important. Like believing in you no matter what, even though you're losing, right? To have that
Yeah, that's all the more
undeniable belief. If sometimes like, you feel like, oh, I don't believe in myself, I can't do it. But then, there's a crowd that starts to cheer you on. There's always a sense of like, oh yeah, okay, I'm going to do this. And that's part of the role that I play as a coach. In fact, a friend yesterday just told me that I have a cheerleader quality to me. And I was like, yeah, you're right. I do. This is something that I feel is part of what I'm meant to do.
That's great. And okay, so Charlotte, if you put on your coach hat, no, Charlotte the coach, well, Charlie, I guess, because that's the name of your consultancy. So
Yeah.
the Charlie coach hat, tell me more about the themes that you see coming up of your clients who are working moms. What are the kind of questions they have?
Mm. So something that I find very interesting, not all of my clients are working moms, and the theme across most of them, the feeling of not being good enough. Sometimes it's being termed as imposter syndrome. Second guessing oneself, so the self-doubt, self-confidence, the lack of self-belief. These are all very common themes across. So yeah, not just for working moms.
And if you were to go back in time wearing
Mm.
your Charlie the coach hat to
Mm.
meet Charlotte Teo then, right?
Yeah.
What would you tell your younger self?
Wow, good question. I would probably ask her to reach out to someone. Just reach out because someone out there has gone through the same thing as you, and you can lean on this person for support. Like don't be shy, don't be paiseh, you know, Singaporean lingo for shy. And the idea of you can have it all, it's just you get to define what your all is. My all is not your all, right? But we can design how we want our all to look like.
I want to dig a little bit more into this having it all idea. It's a common phrase that we hear. We kind of know in our head that it's probably not possible in that no one has it really all together. What was it that you were struggling back then that you see in better light now with regard to having it all?
I think in the context of being a mom, at that point in time, what my all was a child that behaved according to my instructions, no matter what. What does all really mean in the context of this is a child who has no control over his or her own physical needs? Having that context and then define, okay, so what does all mean? All means I have a healthy baby, I have a thriving baby. The child may not be sleeping through the night or eating well. So the all then becomes different. It's like a goal, right? What does that look like? And how can I seek help? How can I solicit help to enable this such that I don't plummet into this is all on me. this is not all on me. That's why they say it takes a village to raise a child. It really takes a village, right? So yeah. So all that we want will not be the same at different points. The all that I want now is very different from the all when my children were 3 months old. Right? The all that I want now is interesting. Now I need to think what's the all that I want now. But yeah, and it's gonna be different for you at your life stage. So recognizing that our alls are different from each other and will be different at different points in our child's life, in our careers.
Going back to the theme of imposter syndrome that you see as something commonly displayed in your clients, how do you usually respond to that? And what are some handles that people can take, especially working moms?
I think the first step is really recognizing that it is present, being honest with yourself that, okay, this is what I'm experiencing. More often than not, when it's called out, it suddenly loses its power a little bit. That's why, sharing it or having people in a support group also experiencing it kind of diminishes its power a little bit. Like, oh yeah, she's also going through it. That kind of doesn't make it so bad. I'm not the only one, right? So strength in numbers, I guess, in a weird sense. That's one, acknowledging it. And sometimes through coaching, this presents itself, right? Through the coach being the observer, we'll be able to call it out and bring awareness to it. And often it's about just getting curious about what that feels like, how it presents, when is it triggered, and bring awareness to that. So for me, if you ask me, like, bottom line, what's the antidote to combating imposter syndrome? It's not like take a pill and it'll be gone, right? This requires courage and vulnerability to, one, acknowledge that it's there, two, be willing to explore what it is. And as we continue to explore and create space for it, quite magically, it can resolve itself over time. It requires commitment from a client to want to work through it, right? There are tools that are available, which we will uncover during coaching. That's extremely personalized. It's not something that can be prescribed. But yeah, the first step is awareness.
Yeah, I definitely identify with that because as a working mom, I often feel that I'm feeling in both areas as a mom and as a worker. There's never in my mind somewhere where I feel that, okay, I'm, a star in both places. And often I feel that I'm just kind of faking it as I make it. There's a lot of tension and I never really feel that I am there. But what you say about, asking yourself what your all is and also calling it out for what it is. I always feel that when I read something or I hear something with, a working mom also says the same thing, I feel this sense of affinity. And I think it is kind of like what you're sharing of identifying it and seeing it for what it is.
Yeah, I can totally relate to what you mentioned. In one of my roles, I did experience that, and I had kind of like a barometer of sorts where I realized that if I gave 100% at work, I would be 50% at home. And if I gave 100% at home, I would be 50% at work. And there was a conversation that I had to have with my boss and my family as well. Look, this is what is possible for me right now, because I was working 2 a.m. nights on several nights a week repeatedly, and it just wasn't sustainable. So the choice that I had to make at that point in time was to decide on priority. So my all became different. My all was, okay, I need to be there for my family. And so I had to move to a different organization that would have supported me and I wouldn't be shortchanging the opportunities at work.
Yeah, Charlotte, if you can talk a little bit about the role that your 42-year-old child, your husband, also played during this process. I also have a 43-year-old, well, close to 40-year-old child. So I understand how that feels.
They're the best. The
Oh my
biggest, the
goodness.
oldest child are the best. My husband and I, we have a very friend-like partnership, and he was really very supportive from the beginning. Super hands-on, super on the ball, like not in a doting way, but in a very pragmatic way,
Okay.
getting things done that are needed. Perhaps it's due to his nature that he's a little bit more, the opposite of procrastinating is precrastinating. So he's a precrastinator.
Wow,
eating
those are
so
really
much in
rare.
advance. Yeah, so rare, right? So I'm really very, very blessed by um how supportive he was. When we had our first child, we were
Mm,
adamant not to have a live-in domestic helper. He did everything else except the baby. So laundry, housework. I
mm.
can I can silently hear some people going, wow. Yeah, that of the year, like hands down, many years. And yeah, I couldn't have done it without him. That sense of, service, in that sense, acts of service that he has within him, really, really came through during those years. So
Mm.
3 gold stars for the 42-year-old child that I have.
Yeah, a treat.
Responsible, very responsible child.
Anyway, different topic for a different podcast. But well, talk about maybe this transition that you did. Well, obviously it's a
Mm.
partnership. So, you stepping away from full-time work, going to explore what you wanted to do next. How did you all discuss that?
Um, it was very hard. It honestly was very hard. It
Mm.
came to a point where it was me making a decision based on who I was going to disappoint. And I had to tell him that he would be, for a period of time, be the one that would be disappointed. He's always been a big advocate of moms going back into the workplace. I think he knows me better than I know myself,
Mm.
that I need to be in the thick of action. And it's true, after a while, I was getting bored, right? Staying at home with the child. And I don't think I would have thrived. Not every mom is like that. So this, I'm not gonna lie, it was a very tough decision. But
Mm.
it was something that we both agreed that I should do. Yeah. To frame it as an investment, using the time to rebuild or rediscover,
Mm.
aspects of myself that maybe became fuzzy, not as clear, gain some clarity. Yeah. And the time has been invaluable.
Yeah.
No regrets. No regrets. Hard, challenging, many tears, tension for sure. But yeah, working through it is part of the process. I hate it, but it's part of the process.
Can you talk a little bit about this new version of Charlotte, the mom, you know, since this transition?
I'm definitely less reactive because perhaps it's been trained, right, to observe during our coaching training that um, curiosity is something that is valued as part of coaching. So that has kind of become, I guess, part of daily life, being curious, like, oh, okay, child is fussy from school.
Mm.
Instead of scolding, why so fussy? Get curious, what's going on? Something happened in school today. Are we tired? I guess just
Mm.
being with them and acknowledging that this is happening and not dismissing, yeah, don't be so fussy, or um, don't be upset,
Mm.
rather, I hear that you're upset. I can see that you're upset. Tell me more, and if don't want to tell, if child doesn't want to engage, okay, fine, you know. So there's a bit more allowance and space given
Right.
in certain situations, so that there has been some change in that. That's something that I've noticed for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And all right. Well, as you look forward a little bit, Charlotte, professionally, where do you see yourself now that you've done this process of reflection and you've picked up new skills? How do you
hmm
think about your professional future?
I see it in two parts. One being having a community for working moms, giving them that brave and safe space to, one, work through the transitions of their lives, be it childbirth, be it raising a child, um, or work transitions, right? Or life transitions, building a space safe enough for a community of working
Mm.
moms to be able to come together and support each other. That's one dream that I have. And another aspect of it is marrying my hobby of baking with mental wellness and
Ooh.
using it to educate people about what mental wellness is like through a fun activity like baking. So these are the two kind of, you heard it here first.
That is a really great two ideas coming together. I'm thinking like eating chocolate cake and talking about how I'm feeling. with other
Yes,
working moms.
absolutely. 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 Yeah. You heard it here first on Make It Work.
Wow, I'm excited for you, Charlotte.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, well, last two questions here.
Mhm.
So, what is one thing that you want listeners to take away from your story?
It's possible to have it all.
Just challenge me there. I see what you did. I was
How
like,
did
it's
I
not
challenge
possible.
you?
Because I'm like, it's not possible.
I mean, my caveat is that you define what all
Yeah.
is, Well, the dream career at the point of 15 years old was to become a tai, right? As with many girls at that age. But that's how I defined my all, and I could not achieve it. So it became a very dream crashing moment when I realized in my 30s that it was not going to be possible. I have to reframe, right? And I do have my all. What more can I ask for? It became a moment of flipping it, becoming grateful instead of constantly, why am I not a tai? Like constantly telling myself this story that I got hoodwinked by my husband. But actually, no, just being able to flip the story just helped so much.
For those who don't know, like Lady of Leisure.
Maybe, have sipping tea, going for yoga class, and,
Which is kind of what somebody's doing now.
amen, amen. It been happening, it's totally different. The context is not the same.
Yes. All right. Thanks so much, Charlotte, for that sharing. And so last question now, if listeners want to connect with you, what areas do you like talking and learning about?
Yeah, thanks for asking that. If listeners want to connect about the various transitions that, they are going through, whether they've just found out that they are expecting, they are about to go into maternity, or they're returning back to work, those are very key moments in a working mom's life. And if they would like support or just an ear to listen, I'm very happy to connect with them. Each person and each individual is inspiring in their own right. You yourself, Sarah, are inspiring, having gone through the transitions that you've had. Inspiring doesn't have to be like a Michelle Obama, right? We can all draw inspiration from each other. And I think that's the beauty of community.
Hence this podcast, inspiring stories of everyday moms like yourself. All right.
For the opportunity.
Thanks, Charlotte.
Thank you.
See you again soon. Bye.
And that was Charlotte Teo, who really challenged me that having it all is actually possible if and only if I define what my all is in that moment. She definitely pressed in on the importance of being courageous enough to be vulnerable. I'll let that sink in by reaching into the community around you. I hope you enjoyed our conversation, and see you at the next episode of Make It Work.